been waiting with bated breath just to connect with us. This morning, we had a power situation, the ECG, yes. I mean, we all know what is happening. Our lights went out, and I've seen some people on social media asking, oh, an entity like yours, don't you have a generator or plant? We do. Something was triggered from that end as well, and so eventually we ended up not continuing with our regular programming. But we're back now, and we're continuing with AM Exclusive. We have a conversation this morning with none other than the chairman of the National Democratic Congress in the person of Johnson Asiedu Nketiah. I don't know whether it's still apt to call him General Mosquito. It is General Secretary days and General, but now I don't know whether we should shift to chairman.
Thank you. Good morning, my brother.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I cannot help but start the conversation here. We should have started this conversation a long time ago.
Yes.
Thanks to the power outage. And yes, we do have systems in place, but even the systems were affected, and we're now starting off this conversation. What has been your experience with DUMSO so far? Or should I say DUMCSC?
Well, maybe it may not be all about DUMSO, but I've gotten used to my programs being interrupted in like manner in other studios. So maybe it is DUMSO, maybe it is something else, but I don't know. Whatever the case is, we thank God that we are back on air, so we can continue the program.
Well, good to have you. But let's just do this. How healthy is the NDC as of today? And I ask this from the position of, if elections were held today in Ghana, presidential, parliamentary, how do you think the NDC would fare? How healthy is it?
Well, if free and fair elections were held today, we'll win hands down, one touch. There'll be no runoff at all. Our concern is about how to secure free and fair elections. So that's where we are focusing now, because our message has been accepted. The two parties have been tried. There are opinion polls that have been churned out, and everything points to a one-touch victory for NDC. But as has been said by some Russian president, that those who vote decide nothing, but those who count the votes decide everything. So we are focusing on those who will be counting the votes and those who will be providing security to make sure that elections proceed uninterrupted. So that's where our focus is now.
And you're saying basically that if elections were held today, let's take away the other factors, and I'll get into them. I'll peel them like onions, layer by layer.
Yes.
But on what basis would you say that your party would have a one-touch victory? Some of these polls, you know that polls are relative. Polls can disappoint. We saw polls go horribly wrong when Trump became president. We've seen polls fall through in the past. Are you relying on polls? Do you really have the numbers? Or are you just figuring it's an 8-year cycle we have had, and so it's our turn again?
I think that however faulty polls are, they are better than guesswork. So we haven't voted today. So you are asking us to project. And I'm saying that we have projected the results to be this way. It is either just guesswork or guesswork supported by something.
Right.
And in this case, our guesswork is supported by scientific data that has been collected on the field. That's why we are confident. Besides our own internal polls, there are outside credible polls that seem to confirm what we have gathered. So that is the source of our confidence.
I was about to go there and ask you that. I mean, the likes of Global Info Analytics and others have put out polls there which seem to suggest that the former president, John Dramani Mahama, may have some sort of lead over his counterpart in the NPP. But you say you've conducted your own internal polls as well.
That's why we are able to
are you
compare with
are you doing these polls that How often are you doing them? How often are you conducting them? And what are they revealing? Are they revealing anything different from or better than what global info analytics
they are for internal consumption, but they are very consistent with what global info analytics is bringing out.
So can you give me a ballpark figure of if elections, I mean, per your last poll, if elections were conducted, what margins?
We are winning 52%.
52%.
As at this month. If elections, free and fair elections were conducted, we should win 52%. And that would be a one-time.
Per your internal poll?
Sure.
Let me come to this, though. Do you feel that the 52% that is being reflected and all of that is because the NDC has performed better than the MPP comparatively? Whether the NDC is a better choice or simply because the MPP has been so bad, has been woeful, for which reason the NDC is an alternative? What do you think?
All of those. all the factors you have mentioned.
All of them put
because
together.
There are people who think that, well, I think NDC is a better option because of the woeful performance of MPP.
Right.
They are the people who believe that bad becomes good when the worst happens. So you have people who did not support NDC in any way at all, but they've seen MPP perform, so it makes NDC looks good. There is that group of people. There is another group that thinks that NDC has been good all along, but MPP succeeded in projecting NDC as a bad, system, and they use media, social media, lies, half-truths, and all that to project NDC as a bad system. And now their own lies are catching up with them. So the truth is emerging, and that has vindicated every step that NDC has taken, which has been classified as bad, to be the right thing that should be that we should be doing. And so that's why I'm saying all that. Everybody has a reason. And then finally, there are those who think that whatever happens,
Right.
we are under some form of misgovernance. So let us remove the government before we even think about who will replace that government. Because whatever happens, the bottom line is that the nation is under some siege. The nation is, the nation has been hijacked. Our institutions have all been reconfigured to serve personal interests instead of public interest. So let's get rid of this bad system before we even figure out who will take over.
But that's also a dangerous prospect. It's like taking a leap of sense versus a leap of faith. Faith will tell us that take a leap of faith, but sometimes jumping into the unknown could be disastrous.
That is what we are trying to avoid, because you see, when you have a bad system in place, then everybody thinks that any other thing is better than what we have. And so without thinking about what the possible replacement is, they will be going in. And that's how, in the past, some dictators have been produced.
Right.
If you go to Italy, that was how Mussolini was produced. You go to Germany, that's how Hitler was produced. And so we have a risk that if we are unable to rescue this system and we continue, the next leader who will be produced may be worse than anything at all. That is why we think that at least we have seen the work of President Mahama and we have seen the work of NDC. We think that let us do everything to replace this government with President Mahama, and we will be in a safe pair of hands. Otherwise, the other alternative will be disastrous. And so, and see, when people lose faith, not in just the government, but in life itself. And they think they don't have anything to lose. They become very, very dangerous to society. And indeed, it's been said that the most dangerous person in society is the one who doesn't have anything to lose.
Has nothing to lose.
That's the point.
But I find it interesting. I, because I'm a student of politics, I'm reflecting on the words you're using. You are talking about Benito Mussolini, who was a fascist leader.
Yes.
You are talking about Adolf Hitler, who was a Nazi leader. At a point, there will be a convergence with Italy, supporting the Nazi effort. That is scary because you are talking about it relative to a democratic administration led by a human rights renowned lawyer. Should you be mentioning these things in the same breath? I find it scary almost that you're mentioning all of these things.
I think that you are getting me wrong. I think you are getting me wrong. I'm describing the situation that persisted before which generated this type of leaders. And that is the situation I'm comparing with Nana Addo's administration. So if we are not able to change it and replace it with a better system, and we go a step further, it could be replaced by a fascist or a worse kind of dictator. And you feel that is where we are heading into election 2024? That is where we are heading into. So we have this window to pass through. If it gets closed, then we are doomed. I see. Let's talk about, your party in terms of gearing up for the 2024 elections. And we'll talk about the EC, yes. But in Kranza South recently, there was a claim by some NPP members that your parliamentary candidate should behave, else, there could be some incidents in there. Then we've seen the limited voter registration exercise and the skirmishes that have characterized it in some instances where some of your party people have also been complicit. Arrests have been made, yes, then claims that this person was not even on the scene. But how are you from your end, especially as political party vigilantism must be swept aside, how are you cooperating as a party on that end to ensure peaceful elections? You see, it is always very important for a credible media house like Joy to get your stories directly from the source so that you will not be influenced by what other people say. And that is why, because the issues you are talking about, the Nkranza issue, the what do you call it? The Nkranza one, I'm just re-echoing the threat or the, what has been said from the MPP caucus. That is the point. That is the point. Or else. That is the point. That's why I'm saying that if you had somebody there reporting to you what is happening there, what actually is happening there, you see those who are, shedding crocodile tears, and those who are facing the truth. So what's the truth in Kranza South is that, Basin is against electoral laws. You cannot hire a bus. Yes. Busing is against electoral laws. Sure, it's there. You cannot go and load people in a bus, drive them to a registration center or a voting center and say that these are my people, get them registered, get down and join the queue. It's against the laws. But I thought, that is what the police. That is what the police is not enforcing, and it is creating this problem. Or that is what they may be enforcing partially. That is creating these problems. You understand? So, if we stick by the law, everything else, our electoral laws are so, designed to create peace. The problem is that those who are to implement the laws or those who are to enforce the laws are not doing the right things. And that is why you have this chaos. For instance, in Kranza North, where you think MPP, you said you heard MPP complaining. You go, I think it was south, rather. In Kranza South. Right. You are busing people straight from Ashanti region who are non-Nkranza indigents to go and register.
And you have proof of that?
Yes, there's proof of that. And the people, citizens there, it's not as if NDC has gone there to organize people. Citizens of that community are saying that these are people who are not from our area, and we cannot sit here for other people to come and decide our fate. They cannot choose an MP for us. They
but
cannot
the
choose assembly members for us.
Contestations is to actually contest. The EC will take it up. You contest this person. The EC will take it up, and you take it from there. Why should it generate?
It's not as if NDC has mobilized people. The citizens, having gone through that process in the past, they have lost confidence in the way we operate our electoral laws, and so they said, look, there has been several cases where this simple procedure of challenging.
Right.
You challenge somebody, you invite the person to appear before the review committee to come and defend himself or herself. If he succeeds, he's given his voter ID card. If he fails, then the ID card is held, and the Electoral Commission is advised to expunge his or her name from the register. There have been several situations where Electoral Commission, in collusion with MPP, has ensured that the names never get expunged, and in spite of whatever the verdict of the review committee has been, the people who have been charged have eventually gotten access to the voter card, and they emerge at the voting day to come and vote.
This is hold for me right there, because it's a serious claim.
We have evidence. We have evidence
from which
about
registration cycle?
Several. No, 2020, and that is why the reaction, people are reacting the way they are reacting. We have that evidence there, and we've raised it. And so you never will see it until the voting day, the register comes, and those people who were successfully challenged and are supposed to be expunged are still in there. And once they have their card, they are allowed to vote.
The EC's register will be exhibited. You, the political parties, you will have access to that register to cross-check some of these things. These individuals, you know them by name. You will be able to fact-check in Kranza South. These people were meant to be expunged per what the conclusions were when the committee sat. Their names are here. You would have access to that, wouldn't you?
I'm talking about the final register that comes to the polling station on the voting day. There are instances of differences, significant differences between the final copy of the register released to political parties and the one that finds itself at certain polling stations on voting day.
You're telling me?
I'm telling you for a fact. I can tell you, Sunyani West. It happened, at least I remember one polling station where the number of registered people on the total number was around 69.
Right.
In the end, the register that was produced on the voting day contained close to 700 names.
From 69 to close to 700.
I'm telling you, yes. We raised it. Electoral Commission has not been able to respond to it. You see, so if so apart from names that are supposed to be deleted, which never gets deleted, there are also cases where transfers are made on the blind side of the political parties, at least NDC.
That is
where you find
vote transfers.
Vote transfers, because there is a transfer procedure. That's why I'm saying that if we abide by the laws, there should be no conflict in our elections at all. But the problem comes where Electoral Commission officials collude not to abide by the laws. And then somebody who feels cheated wants to take the law into his own hands. And it generates conflict. So there are cases where if you are getting to, there is a transfer window so that Electoral Commission will announce that whoever wants to transfer their vote from A to B. This is the window.
Exactly.
These two weeks. Come and transfer. Every political party would have a list of people who have been transferred from each station to another station. Then you get to election day. The list that you have that has been transferred from A to another place. You go there and there's a bulk transfer of votes from one constituency to another constituency, which did not pass through any properly regulated transfer system at all. But they just come and they are added. And then the voting takes place. And then the results are generated. Some of this was detected in Hohoi in 2020. And that was what led to the upset that we had there. So these are genuine things.
So the loss of the Hohoi constituency to the railways minister was on the back of some
transfers that did not pass through the system.
Basically, on the back of some rigging. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
The system was rigged.
Yes, it did not. The transfers did not pass through any proper transfer window regulated for everybody to know the names that have been added, and we have all the figures there. You understand? So that is why we always insist that in appointing electoral officials, make sure that at least the people you appoint do not openly belong to any political party.
But is that not a tall order? Practically every Ghanaian is a political animal.
Openly. Everybody votes.
Right.
But if you go and appoint somebody who is holding a position in one political party and say he's going to be a commissioner at the Electoral Commission, it's like Kotoko and Haas going to play football. And then you go and appoint the captain of House of Folk to be the referee. What do you think, even if that person handles the job impartially, who will believe that he did impartial job?
The optics. And we'll get into some
you
of that.
understand? And that was why Apia Hene, who was elections director of MPP in Brongahafo, was appointed a commissioner. We objected. All that we did didn't end up anywhere. He is still part of the system now. He's there. And last month when Baumia was in Bono, Apia Hene appeared at the function. So if you have a democracy that has gone this low, how do you expect citizens to have confidence in the elections management body?
In another breath, you can also understand, and we have ample evidence of saying, the Electoral Commission is not perfect. It is run by human beings.
Yes.
And human beings are bound to err in some small or big way.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, in which place was it that you mentioned where from 69 it was over 700?
Sunyani West. Yes.
That is quite a figure. But by and large, which is why again you look at your electoral petition in 2020, right? Is it enough? Is there enough evidence to substantiate widespread rigging to the point where a leader, the former president, would lose? That is the question. I mean, are you considering that human beings err?
You are confusing the issues.
I don't think I am.
We are doing registration.
Right.
And we are trying to find out why there is conflict. And I'm giving you reasons why conflictual situations can devolve. Conflictual situations can devolve. Yes.
The point is, the suggestion then, by extension, is that because these numbers were added, or there was padding, you just mentioned Hohoi, did you know?
Yes.
So we were at a disadvantage, for which reason we likely lost the elections. Is that not an assumption to me? And I'm saying that, are these enough to say that the Electoral Commission, for example, is not doing its work right, looking at the fact that these are human beings at post?
I'm talking about the human being you put there. You know, the Constitution in several cases prescribes which type of human being should occupy which office.
True.
It has been put
Age,
there that
sound mind, this and
a
that.
madman cannot contest elections.
Right.
So if you go and put a madman somewhere and you expect the madman to behave well, then you should hold yourself accountable for what you have done. We are talking about who has been put where. You understand? And after the elections, the recently held elections in Nigeria,
Right.
you heard about claims that constituency executives of another constituency in Ashanti region were actually recruited as staff to man the elections in Nigeria of MPP. Nobody has responded to it. They published the names, and the names have been verified to coincide with those who actually man those stations. Can you think?
You prompted the Electoral Commission.
We are not part of the elections. We're not part of the elections. But those who
I
were,
realize you were not, but
those who were in there, they came out to say that we are Afafanto or whatever, and we just came from MPP, and we know that these names A, B, C, D, they are executives of Kumau constituency. They were recruited to man polling stations in Nigeria during these by-elections. Electoral Commission has not come to contest those claims. And if it is true that a commission can go and recruit people from one political party which is in the contest to man polling stations, I mean, how do you force people to have confidence in such a system? That is why I'm saying that, look, you have power. You can use the power anyhow. And Akufo-Addo thought that, well, say what you will, I'll do what I think I have power to do. He has power to appoint commissioners. But you don't have power to force us to believe in the commissioners you have appointed if we think that they are not the right people. You understand? So it is a problem that we are going to face going into this election, because if you appoint people who are openly partisan to head the commission, and they are the people who will be recruiting the other people who will be going to the polling stations, who are they going to recruit?
You know,
and so that is a problem.
Right.
And there is the security issue too. You heard about this expose where MPP parliamentary candidates are being asked to submit names to be recruited into the security sector. It has not been settled. The response the Interior Minister came to talk about was that, well, it is happening, but NDC people too are being recruited. Is that the law based upon which recruitment is done?
Let's situate the conversation. You started talking about the Interior Minister.
Yes.
It has been made clear that there is no such plan, because there's nothing such that every parliamentary candidate is going to bring 30 individuals, whether it's the police service or the military or the fire service, because all of them we know are on the ground on election day, right? And that it's not even possible when you look at the numbers, because if you do the multiplication on the majority side, such numbers can't even be trained within a single cohort. How many are being trained currently? I hear it's the highest cohort since the 1950s. I think 1959. It's about 500 and something, and this is the highest. So is it realistic, this claim that is being made?
When the Interior Minister says that he has a list of NDC names that have been submitted by NDC MPs, what are the names going to be used for if there is nothing like that happening?
Have your members of parliament submitted any names that you...
They haven't, and so yesterday, Dr. Atuforsen responded to the Interior Minister that he could publish any names with any MPs who have submitted names to him. But the important thing is that the Interior Minister has admitted that this is happening, but your MPs are also part of it.
So
that is what it is
by what he's
now.
saying, you take it as a tacit admission that this is
but
happening.
if nothing is happening, why would you say that by your people are involved? They are involved in something that is not happening.
But we know that definitely there are not thousands of recruits
whether
going
they
to
are
be added to the figure
anytime we are going
before
into 2000, when we were going into elections,
right,
there was recruitment. People were brought from the police training depots and so on to go and provide security at polling stations.
Did you say the year 2000 or 2020? Which one are you?
2020, sorry.
Right.
2020. That is what they want to repeat. You see, and there were people, those who went and shot and killed. Has the police been able to identify anybody? Or the soldiers, have they been able to identify anybody?
You're talking about the
Techiman and other places.
incident.
Yes. Have they been able to identify anybody? As we sit here, no.
And you think it's on the back of this?
Yes, it's on the back of that.
Into the security services.
Because you see, I get the impression that it is a conduct that is endorsed by His Excellency the President.
How can you stretch it that far?
Oh, because you see, by the carrot and stick approach to management, leaders would reward conduct that they endorse, and they punish conduct that they disagree with. And you look at how the attitude of this government and the leadership to violence and impunity and so on. Nothing happens. So and in fact, I get the impression that, violence is even rewarded subtly. Look at the last list of ministerial nominees. Martin Ajemensa Kosa. It was his election that degenerated into these killings in Techiman. He's been made a minister.
You think that's a reward?
Look, I'm establishing a trend. Look at Seiram. It is
Al-Hassan.
Yes, it is an election that developed into this Ayawaso, West Wogon shootings and conflict. She is a minister. Look at the case of Mfansi Man MP, whose husband was murdered on a campaign trail. Nothing has happened. He's a minister. Look at the wife of J.B. Dankwa. Is it the wife of the person who succeeded J.B. Dankwa?
J.B. Dankwa
Edu J.B. Dankwa. You see, also a minister. Check all these things and see what trend does it portray. You understand? So, if somebody, your child steals something and he or she gets punished, next time she will not be stealing. But if a child steals something and he comes and he's promoted, he's congratulated for stealing, you are teaching the child how to steal, and they'll continue to steal. And there is nobody, look, the people who were involved in shooting in Accra here, one of them was known to be the bodyguard of one of the operatives at the presidency. He was named, nothing has happened. You see, so under this government, the lesson that Nanado and Baumia is sending is that when it comes to election, you can kill and get away from it. You can maim and get away with it. So long as they win, nothing will happen to you. So if they are making noise that we are fighting electoral violence, we are passing vigilante laws, we are doing this, I don't think that they mean it at all. This is a government of pretense. They pretend about electoral violence, they go to encourage electoral violence, they pretend about fighting corruption, they go to encourage corruption, they pretend about fighting galamsey, they go and their key people are involved in galamsey, and all that. That is the government that we are under, and that is why we think that this nation must be rescued. civil society should focus our attention. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to be maimed. But you see, if I'm going to die anyway, I better fight so that I get a small chance of survival.
But is that to say that come election 2024, if you feel something is the truth or is right, and even if you must, so to speak, breach or break the law to be able to protect that truth or that right, you will break the law to do it?
Listen, you must define the you. The you is not Asiedu Nketiah or NDC.
Right.
The you is the people of this country.
I'm talking about members of your party. They also people
No,
of
no,
this
no.
country.
I'm saying that when it comes to law and electoral violence, if you make a mistake of thinking that it is one party that is going to organize to fight what is going wrong, you may be mistaken. Because there are people who are fed up. If the whole population is fed up that things are not going on well, those who are not getting jobs, those who are suffering excruciating pain because of cost of living and all that, who don't have anything to do, they may not be NDC people at all. So they want to change a system. So if they see you blocking their ambition of changing the thing peacefully, it will not take the national chairman of NDC or general secretary of NDC to go and give any command for anybody to do something. So we are all leaders, and we are pointing at things that can be triggers for confusion. And we are drawing the attention to the state so that we all look at those triggers and diffuse them. That is the argument I'm making. I'm not saying that if I say if you add petrol to fire, there will be an explosion. It means that I'm going to carry petrol and pour it into fire. No. We are saying that this is something that is a fact that we have to guard against. Right. If we don't do that, it can explode into this situation that cannot be contained. And so we better look at it.
I get both points you're making. Yeah. No one wants an escalation, but you also want to secure your rights. Yeah. I just have this question, though, to wrap up on the EC-related matters. We'll get to the BVRs, BVDs. But before we do, so at this point, 7 months to the elections, what would be, on a scale of 1 to 10, your level of confidence in the Electoral Commission that is going to supervise that election or those elections on the parliamentary and presidential level? As you sit here today, if I asked you on the back of what you've seen,
I won't give a figure, but it's below par.
The EC has performed.
I say I won't give a figure, but it's below par.
Where below par means what?
Below pass mark. Unless,
so
but
below
they have
50?
Yes, they have the opportunity to correct themselves, but it doesn't look like they're about correcting themselves. See, because after we walked out of IPAC, and for certain reasons, Peace Council intervened, and everybody gave promises that we will be working together. I think that we should have begun on the new path, but what is emerging does not give me personally confidence that actually we are working on the new path, because a leopard hardly will share its spots, shared its spots. So maybe they are trying, but I want to encourage them to improve, because as we sit now, I don't think that I have that level of confidence, and that is why we are leaving no stone unturned to make sure that wherever there is that confidence shortfall, we put in other measures to ensure that we will still have some credible elections.
Where lies the problem? Is it with the Electoral Commissioner herself and her thinking, or is it with everything across the board in the Electoral Commission?
It's about everything we have discussed this morning.
I see. So let's take a brief swipe at the BVD and BVR issue.
Yes,
You know, there have been a lot of statements from the EC saying,
you're
making a mountain out of a molehill. This is not the case. You are even now suggesting that you know, these are in the hands of certain people who are using them to register certain NPP members on the blind side of the NDC and all of that. And the EC says, stop throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. Why are you doing this?
Where are the missing BVs? My BVRs, where are they? This is a simple question that EC, if they don't have anything to hide, they shouldn't drag it to create all this unnecessary noise. The problem is coming from them. All right? Because the demands we are making, they are demands that ordinary people with ordinary intelligence will be making to satisfy ourselves that nothing is going wrong. They have every capacity to respond to those demands without it creating any problem. The fact that they are refusing to open up is the source of worry, and it will continue to be the source of worry. But because I think that if they don't have anything to hide, opening up would have resolved this matter long, long ago. You see, you have this, first of all, you are keeping these machines. Some gets missing. You know they are security machines, and they are kept under
lock and key.
Lock and key. Apart from that, you have CCTV surveillance. You have fiscal security surveillance. You have the military deployed 24 hours, police deployed 24 hours, an armor car in front of the Electoral Commission. And apart from that, individual commissioners are protected by armed personnel. Now, you have this sensitive equipment. Some gets missing. We are saying that, tell us, was there a break-in? In which case, you can examine the logs to see that somebody has broken in. So far, no break-in. You have a CCTV surveillance 24 hours. What story is the CCTV telling us? You say nobody should know. And the fact that this equipment got missing, if you are open, as you keep on saying, let the people know, let the people, if you are open, the very day you detect that these things are missing, what do? You inform Ghanaians. You inform the people that this sensitive equipment has gotten missing and we are on the lookout for them. Or these are ABC are the actions we are taking. You know, this equipment gets missing. Nobody heard about it until there was some rumor. And then our members of parliament actually questioned EC officials in parliament where they had gone for a different assignment. And they didn't have any option but to admit that some of the things got missing. Then the minority leader addresses a press conference and put it in a public domain that some equipment have gotten missing. Then you react swiftly that no such equipment has been missing from your place. Then we call an IPAC meeting to go and find out what was happening. Then it was at the IPAC meeting that you now admit that indeed these things were missing. And we ask you, what steps have you taken after that?
I mean, I think we are fully aware of some.
You understand? You know all these things.
Right.
So where we are saying that if it is public property that has gotten missing, what are you hiding about the fact that they have gotten missing? What are you hiding about the identity of the exact equipment that got missing? You are telling us that it was laptops, which are components. That is the key engine of the registration kit.
They say without certain operational allowances, those laptops mean nothing.
Look, all the laptops, the dangerous thing about it is that the laptops have been exclusively manufactured
for the process.
For the process.
Right.
And the Ghana Electoral Commission. And so, and that is at the center of the workstation for the registration. All the others can be bought off the shelves. And not all the
so let me
like
just,
the scanner.
I get the point you're making. What is the end game here? Because, for example, you have said that you would use some technology to get the serial numbers at different, polling stations for some of these gadgets. Are you able to do that now? Is it a process you've already started?
Listen, we are worried because the same Electoral Commission is telling us two different stories from their own mouth, from one mouth. Because when we said that, let us identify those that are missing, so that everybody in Ghana knows that these 7 or 6 or 5 items are missing. So the serial numbers of this, if you detect it anywhere, or you detect the output from that equipment anywhere, then we all know that it cannot be part of our process. You say that, no, that one you won't give it to us. It's okay. If those that are missing, we are assuming that you didn't even record the serial numbers of those that were missing before they were taken away. Right. So let them go. But what we are deploying today,
they've told you for security reasons they can't do that. But
so the security reasons, listen.
Are you going on that trajectory?
Just a moment. If those that are missing, you are not identifying them to us. Those that are in use, you don't want to identify them to us. What type of transparency is that? And your reason for us to convince us to ignore those that are missing is that without an activation code, they cannot be used. You didn't say the serial number, because those that are missing have been stolen together with the serial numbers. So if the serial numbers are so sensitive that anybody who gets it can manipulate our elections, then we must be worried about those that are lost. We said those that are in use, let's have their serial numbers. And you are now telling us that the serial number, if you get it, you can manipulate elections.
We get that point. I'm saying, are you capable? You said you would get the serial numbers.
Yes, we are capable of that.
Have you already started doing that?
Yes, because in fact,
did you just say yes?
Yes, I say yes. Before this issue became a public controversy, we had collected all the serial numbers for 15 regions.
I see, of these devices.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Because they are displayed at the registration center, and no registration or EC official thought that the serial number of an equipment is anything of any consequence. If you want it to ensure transparency, it is good for all of us.
Your people were taking photos of these because they're displayed on the gadgets, and so what?
It's there, and we are all sitting there. They took it, and so when you are going to do elections, the BVDs, we all take their serial numbers on election day. So if those you are using for registration, you say let's take the serial numbers. How does it become security?
All right.
And so it was the regional officer for Ashanti region who refused to allow our agents to pick the serial numbers. And we said, how? All the regions we have picked. What is the problem? And then we reported to their bosses in Accra that this regional person is frustrating our effort. Then the bosses in Accra now hold a meeting and decide that the regional officer was right. So they now issue a circular that nobody should be allowed access to serial numbers.
But you're going contrary to that.
Because we have this, or the 15 regions already, and we are picking the Ashanti region one, whether they like it or not.
In defiance of what the EC has.
Because the machine is, you put it in public, and there are agents there. So what are you hiding? Can you be driving a vehicle on our roads and say that you won't allow anybody to pick the number? And that if I am a passenger and I'm boarding a vehicle, I want to take the number and send it to my wife that I'm on vehicle number so and so for my own protection in case something happens. you say you won't allow me to take the victory.
But what does that say?
You want me to see?
You want a free and fair election. There's an
That's
arbiter.
what I'm saying.
Hold for me. There's an arbiter, the Electoral Commission, and they say go by these rules. You don't want to go by those rules.
Where are the rules? There is no such rule.
No, but the EC
they are insisting on the wrong thing.
In this instance, on the back of security, reasons and all of that, we want parties to comply.
It is not
with this,
easy.
and you say you would
Why
not comply.
didn't they issue that one before the registration process if they knew that it was part of their security?
All right.
There was nothing like that. And there's no law they are trying to enforce. It is just impunity.
Right, I get
that. Because we are in power and this is what we want to do. How do you change the rules of a game when the game is already in progress?
I get you. You've already mentioned, I'll cap this off on the political front.
Yes.
You've said that if elections were held today, you would expect the NDC to secure some 52% per your internal polls.
Yes.
There's also the long-standing issue of the flag bearer of the MPP not having a running mate. Some have said there are different reasons for that. Some have even suggested that, it's a delay maybe to ensure that whomever they pick doesn't get too chastised before the elections. But why do you think that is happening? And do you think that works for your party, the NDC?
Because their official position is that a running mate is useless. Even when he becomes a vice president, he's a mate. So they don't think that getting a running mate is of any consequence.
I see.
That is their official position, according to Dr. Baumia.
All right, that was succinct. Let's now get into some other boiling issues currently. There's the SNIT, tussle, an attempt to sell stake in 4 hotels to Brian Champong and his Rock City Hotel and all of that. The TUC has come in. Some former administrators of SNIT have spoken. What is your position on this? I heard, I believe, the information minister saying today that why are we doing this to a local businessman? Now, if we took away the politics, right, and the fact that he's a businessman with one of the biggest hotels in the sub-region currently, and if he can do it, why are we treating him this way? I also listened to Nana Komia recently say that some members from the NDC in the past have had stake shares in SNIT hotels in Sunyani, somewhere in the Central Region, Cape Coast and others. So what is your take on this?
You know why we are not making progress?
Right.
If you catch a thief, he says that there was another thief who also stole this one, so it's a balancing game. I mean, that is not the way a country should be run at all. Right. Now, if he's worried about the noise, it is because the stakeholders are very many. As I sit here, I'm putting politics aside. I'm a stakeholder because I'm a pensioner.
All of us pay our pensions.
Precisely.
Hoping that someday
Precisely.
we'll reap the benefits.
So if you are dealing with people's pensions, in the wake of a situation where pensioners have been asked to come for a haircut, people shouldn't keep quiet. It must be transparent.
But I'm asking, is it
and there are
they say they went through a process, went through all the protocols, and his outfit emerged on top. Should we deny him merely because he's a political figure and his party
Whether they have gone through the process or not is now a subject for SRAG investigation. Let the SRAG come to talk to us. See, because there are several issues that are being bundled together. Number one, SNIT has a responsibility to invest people's pension funds in such businesses as will generate sufficient profit to be able to pay beneficiaries. So the first thing you got to look at is that the sale of the hotels, is it something that is a prudent business engagement that SNIT is going into? As for that one, all stakeholders of SNIT can have a bite at that argument. Right. That's one thing. Right. The other side is that even if it is prudent for SNIT to offload those shares, how did it get to the selection of Brian Champong's company to handle it.
But I just told you that SNIT
is the
had claimed
concern.
that there were processes, due process.
But the major stakeholders of SNIT are contesting that claim. That is TUC, the Workers' Front. They are contesting that claim. So that is another matter. And the third leg of the argument is that an honorable member of parliament, who is also a minister of state, buying state property, have all the precautions been taken to ensure that it is fair and proper for such a person to buy a state property? That is another angle. And so,
if all these boxes were ticked,
the last one,
and the person
the last
qualified.
one is that a member of parliament is not supposed to hold an office of profit directly or indirectly, because I heard him saying that he's a director, but he doesn't take what do you call it? He doesn't take any allowances or salaries and so on. But he ends up saying that he's a sole owner of the company. So where does the profits of the company go? It comes into your pocket. That is the indirect payment. So Shrag will look at those things. So first, as a member of parliament engaging in business without the permission of Mr. Speaker, as a member of government buying state property, there's another issue there. And whether SNIT is investing the monies of workers in the proper way, it's another issue. So these are things that we need to go into. If you don't take them one by one and look at them and you bundle everything together, somebody says, for example, it's MPP, this one says NDC, this one says this, it won't solve any problem at all. And listen, you spoke about holding of shares and so on. If you are a majority shareholder, it is completely different from being an ordinary shareholder. You understand? If I'm controlling 10% of the shares in a company, I don't influence the decision in any way and so on. You can't compare it with somebody who is, the 100% owner of a company, and that is what we are hearing. And then the process that you say, SNIT says there's nothing untoward. At least the letters that I have read, this process started in 2018.
Right.
Transaction advisors were appointed somewhere in 2018 when Brian Champon's hotel has not been established. So a process that begins before your birth.
Right.
How come you become the winner in 2020? And it's also a case that in 2020 another transaction advisor was appointed. Was that transaction advisor a co-transaction advisor to the one earlier appointed, or is it the case that the earlier one had been dismissed and the first process has been abandoned and they began a new process because there's a new company that has come on board and there's an intention to make him the winner? We don't know. So these are things that we need.
So these are questions that ought to be answered.
Yeah.
And because you made mention of that, there are also some interesting developments. Recently, the NIB has got a parliamentary candidate from the MPP being made the board chair. The most recent one, your counterpart on the MPP end, Stephen Asiedu Nketiah, to be board chair of the National Petroleum Authority, maybe MPP, NPA. What do you make of that? I mean, if you were...
Oh, but that is not the first time.
If such an offer were made to you, would it be problematic?
No. As a board chair of anything, there are processes you go through.
Right.
If you go through all those processes, why? And you have the knowledge.
Right.
You can do it. There's no problem. I don't have any problem with Stephen Tim's
if an
appointment.
NDC, administration, if you came to power and as chairman of your party, you were given the opportunity of being board chair to one of these state institutions, you would take it up.
If there is something that prevents me from being the chair, unless I will be cited for conflict of interest, I won't take it. But if all the boxes are ticked and I'm invited to contribute my knowledge or expertise to help run a state enterprise, why not? Because I have always been saying that something that is missing in our governance and in our campaign and promises is that our manifestos scarcely focus on corporate governance. Everybody will be talking about one free this, one free that, one free this, one free that. But the key factor to our success is proper corporate governance. Because it is there that economic development is generated. You understand? So even we must have an eye on public corporate governance and even private corporate governance, because if the private institutions in the country are being run properly and profitably, and the public ones are also being run properly and profitably, then the economy will grow. But if it's like you look at ministerial appointments and put your best products there, and then you say that, this one you were campaign. So it also boils down campaign manager here. So even our constitution. Yes, campaign manager here. So you go and be this board chairman. You go. So the board positions or corporate state corporate positions are given to foot soldiers. And they mess up, and the government cannot make progress.
I get your point.
The best materials should be sent there to go and generate the wealth.
Two quick issues I want us to deal with before we wrap. One has to do with the KPMG report. Have you seen it yet? The other one would have to do with the special prosecutor.
Who else has seen it apart from government? Nobody has seen it.
No, but the president, it's been released.
The president, no, maybe before I entered here, because this morning it was...
The president directed that.
It was a condition that Dr. Atuforsen gave when there was a meeting between the president and the leadership of parliament. The president was trying to get their concurrence
on a number of issues.
And the approval of this agreement.
So this was a barter. This was part of what the NDC said.
So yeah, we said that look. We suspected there was something wrong, and then you put KPMG there to verify. The report is in. You don't want us to see it, and yet you want us to proceed to go and approve something. So publish it for every Ghanaian to know, so that we will see that what you are presenting to Parliament actually contains the corrective actions.
Okay, so this was
that will help you
quid pro quo. Yes. Give us this, and we'll also support you. So that was a request
in the interest of the state, yes.
And that is why
I believe that is why the president has done what he did.
I see. Some also say it has been released at this time to water down the effect of the SNIT by the Champon saga. You don't believe that?
Well, if the president invited the leadership to water down this one, I wouldn't know. But I know it was a demand that civil society were making, and we were also making.
Are you happy now? Now that it's been released?
We are now going to read the report to know what is contained in there and to be able to decide whether we are comfortable approving anything or not.
I'll tell you for a fact that some people have already dug into it. We already have started taking a look at it. People like...
I can answer questions on something I have...
Right. Bright Simmons, for example, in a post says, in the midst of a tense debate about the propriety of a cabinet minister buying majority state-owned hotels, the famous KPMG report on SML is finally released. As suspected, Ghana's president's earlier summary had major gaps. SML received 1.5 billion, not 1 billion. It goes on and on and on. But now that it has been released, at least you can salute the president for letting go of it and putting it in the public space.
His back was on the wall. He wanted something
against the wall.
Against the wall. He wanted something done, and we said, do this before we do that.
So you're basically telling Ghanaians that if it hadn't been for the president conferring with Dr. Atuforsen and the minority side, I think I saw Abuja there as well, that without your pushing for that, we wouldn't have had this report. Is that what you're saying?
I'm very sure that we wouldn't have had the report. But because the president wants action to be taken on something, and we say that this is a condition let us know what is in there before we will be able to make up our minds whether what you want us approved is proper. That is it. And that was the same position our MPs adopted on this $150 million loan. There was an earlier $200 million loan that we believe had not gone to do what it was it was meant for. Right. And that was the first phase. Right. So they brought a second phase of $150 million. And our MPs were saying that, let us know what you use the $200 million phase one for. Right. If we are satisfied, we will approve this.
I get that.
It never it never got done, and that was why our people opposed the loan to the very end.
I see. Mm-hmm. I'd like us to briefly delve into the bit about the special prosecutor, Nketiah and someone who was an attorney general under former president Atta Mills, may his soul rest in peace, Martin Amidou. Were you surprised when you found out that that petition was coming from Martin Amidou? Some have said sour grapes, others have said, oh, he is right, and now the process continues. What is your take on that? Are we fighting corruption?
No, we are not fighting corruption. I was extremely surprised, to be honest with you. Because Martin Amidou, I know, until this thing was done, I trusted that he was a very principled person.
Until this, you trusted that Martin Amidou was principled?
Yes, I was principled.
Which means now you don't?
My faith in his being principled is badly shaken. You see, you were appointed to occupy a certain office. At that time, I made a public comment that Comrade Martin, I know, will eventually end up resigning. Because I know this government too. And I know that they don't intend to fight corruption. They are not serious about fighting corruption. But they want to create a facade that they are fighting corruption. So they want some stooges who will be dancing to their tune and be creating the impression outside that they are fighting corruption. And Martin will not accept that. So when it comes to a point where he feels very strongly about a certain move and he's being impeded, he will resign. I said this several months before he resigned, the very time he was appointed. And I pointed to the flaws of the law, that the law itself is problematic. So nobody who fits into that position will be able to do its work unless there is serious political commitment towards fighting corruption, which I know MPP government lacks. So if they don't have that serious political commitment, they have a lot of ways to cripple the person so he cannot function. Because Martin Amidou had established some reputation as vigilante, one-man vigilante, citizen, and all that. But I made an analogy at that time that, look, you can put the best pilot in a taxi. He cannot fly the taxi. He may be the best pilot, but because the vehicle itself is not meant to fly, if you put him in there, he can only drive. He can't fly.
Is that where Nketiah Jabin
That was, yes, between Nketiah Jabin and Martin Amidou, they all suffer the same thing. But my problem with Comrade Martin is what pushed him to now believe that the solution to this, our corruption problem, is for him to write to the person you have described as the mother serpent of corruption to take action in this matter.
What do you think?
That is what has shaken my confidence in him.
Do you think something has happened that eyes have not seen?
He shouldn't have done that. I'm still trying to understand why, Comrade Martin, have you abandoned your view that Nana Akufo-Addo is the master serpent of corruption? Or you still hold that view? If you still hold that view, and you, when you were being, you were confronted with you came to a roadblock, that I want to do this thing against finance minister, and the president says, no way, and you resigned and came and opened up. If your successor has come to a similar road block, and the president is demanding his resignation, won't you show solidarity? And you are rather making yourself the tool for the president to be able to achieve his objective of fighting those who are fighting corruption.
The CJ is interacting with Nketiah on the matter to determine whether there's a prima facie case. But would you call this a witch hunt?
The whole thing is a charade.
It's a charade.
Completely.
All right.
The one involving Martin, Kusia Jabin, and Cecilia Dapa, and the presidency, and so on. The whole thing is a charade. And I cannot take any position either in support of Kusia Jabin, or in support of Martin Amidu, or President Kufuado, or Cecilia Dapa, until the storm settles and we go to pick the pieces. We will know who has done wrong to this country.
All right. My final bit to you would be...
And it's about to settle in December.
The NDC, what we can expect, the way forward. But before that, just to chip in, Hobson Adoye, you know him.
Yes, I do.
Accosted for claiming that in 2016 there was some dynamite explosion or blasting in the Volta region, and that the MPP was behind it. What is your take on that? He's been arrested now. He's in custody. After that, then we just get to what we can expect from the NDC.
He's talking to you about what he has been involved in. And indeed, we can confirm that there were those blasts. You know, it's not inside, it was not inside the Ghana side of Volta region. You know, there's always this confusion about registration of people, Ghanaians living in Togoland, and people calling them Togolese and all that.
Right.
So there are a lot of Ghanaians who live in Togo. And in fact, that is why when President Kufuor was talking about this ROPA, Togo was the first country he visited. Right. Togo was the first country the Committee of Parliament visited because of the huge numbers of Ghanaians there. Right. And so I can't understand why, if a government wants to empower its citizens outside to vote, and they can go as far as to London to call people to buy plane tickets and come, and they will not allow Ghanaians living across the border to come and vote. So it is true, during the 2016 elections, there were, certain blasts along the border inside Togo. And because of that, all the Ghanaians there who had registered.
Question is, do you feel the MPP was behind that?
But the person who was responsible as the MPP agent has come to talk about it. So why are you arresting him?
So you believe Hobson?
Yes, I do believe him.
All right. What can we expect from the NDC?
And I not about that one alone. Apart from that one, there were markets that got bent. And there was a serious suspicion that there were some agents who have been sent to bend those markets.
Well, suspicion is not fact.
You understand? So, and this one was a suspicion until now we are getting to know how it happened.
What can we expect?
So maybe we will expect another one about who bent